Manx Radio's Update with Lewis Foster.
Fastamai, welcome along to Update, your half-hour look at all the latest news on and from the Isle of Man. It's Tuesday, the 20th of August. Coming up on the programme, there's a warning for MGP visitors and motorists as stormy weather approaches. A Port Erin Commissioner explains why she'll always object to tourist accommodation plans. And will you be going for fried chicken at 3 in the morning? No judgment. We'll also keep you posted on anything to watch out for travel-wise. Anything you want to let us know, text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First of all, let's join Siobhan Fletcher for the headlines. Fastamai, Siobhan.
Fastamai. Manx Grand Prix organisers have confirmed Alex Sinclair, a competitor in the Junior, Classic Junior and Classic Senior, has recorded a non-negative test for recreational drug. Riders and officials are screened randomly by a company from the UK with no involvement from organisers on island. Sinclair has been excluded from this year's event. Meanwhile, roads around the Snaefell Mountain course are still set to shut in an hour's time ahead of this evening's qualifying session. However, organisers say tonight's schedule is still subject to change depending on weather conditions around the course. A final decision is expected by 5:30. Trade Union Prospect has renewed calls for an increased pay offer to be made to public sector workers. The current proposal comprises 3.25% for the current financial year, decreasing over the following 2 years. Further afield, dive teams are searching for 6 people missing after a super yacht sank off the coast of Sicily, and they believe they're trapped in the wreckage. The tech tycoon Mike Lynch and executives from Morgan Stanley Bank and Clifford Chance law firm are amongst those still unaccounted for. The King has been meeting with some of the girls who survived the Southport stabbing last month. Charles also spoke with emergency services and faith leaders who helped after the attack in which 3 young children died. And Great Britain will send 215 athletes to the Paralympics in Paris in what will be the team's most equal gender split ever at the Games. 46% of competitors will be women. They're your headlines. I'll be back with your news at 6.
Gromayed. Thank you, Siobhan. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. There is, of course, that yellow weather warning in place from tonight until Thursday afternoon for gales, severe gales, coastal overtopping and harbour flooding. Well, tonight, sunny spells with the risk of a few rather sharp showers. Still feeling quite breezy as well in fresh to strong westerly winds with a minimum temperature of 10 degrees. Then dry at first tomorrow, but a spell of rain will arrive around midday, clearing in the evening, although it will likely remain cloudy for the rest of the day. Fresh to strong southwest winds and a best temperature of just 16 degrees. Then a band of heavy rain arrives overnight into Thursday as the fresh to strong southerly wind increases to gale force, potentially seeing gusts of 55 to 60 miles per hour in exposed areas. That rain will then clear throughout the morning as the wind swings to the southwest and eases, leaving the rest of the day mainly dry with sunny intervals soon developing. Top temperature on Thursday of 17 degrees. Then sunset tonight at 8:36 p.m. Sunrise tomorrow at 7 minutes past 6.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. It's easy to repair broken greenhouse glass at Manx Glass and Glazing. For greenhouse glass cut to size, call 674 573.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Bell-Dawn bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company. Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading, new and second-hand furniture, from flat pack to fully built. See our range at Unit 24, Gladstone Park, Ramsey. All island delivery and man in a van service available. Call SMS Trading on 315 151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
Visit Ramsey Craft Centre at Church Walk St Paul Square for beautiful yarns, fabrics, buttons, craft kits, patterns, in fact all you need for your craft works. Open Monday to Saturday. Visit Ramsey Craft Centre St Paul Square or find us on Facebook for opening times, news and offers.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And the time now 5:05. A Port Erin Commissioner says she will always object to planning applications for new tourist accommodation in the town, saying homes need to be lived in. Hannah Mackenzie says she would like to see young families and professionals prioritised for empty properties to help rebuild communities instead.
So ultimately, I think island-wide there is a place for tourists, for sure. I mean, we've got so much to offer for people to see. But at the last census, there were actually more vacant properties than ever. And I'd like to see a swing before it's too late to concentrating on rebuilding stronger communities. And I do believe the way in which we can do this is by filling those properties with local young professionals and families.
What has the board been doing to try and curb the issue of too much tourist accommodation in the village?
Well, up until this last meeting, we have supported most applications to have additional tourist use on properties. So this is the first objection to change of use that we as a board have voted for. So hopefully, I've got a multi-generational attachment to Port Erin, and whilst there's a waiting list for locals to access accommodation on our island, I will continue to ask that the board object to allowing more tourist use properties within the village. Well, in the village, you go down to the lower promenade, which was where the village started. You know, that's where St Catherine's Well is and where the fishermen would have lived. And there's a huge amount of empty properties. And then you come up to the top village and the shops are clearly struggling. There's lots of businesses that are having to close down. And I don't believe it's all to do with tourist accommodation. However, I would hate to see it change in places that I've seen on the west coast of Ireland and in Wales, where tourism has become a victim of its own success. I don't want that for my village.
That's Port Erin Commissioner Hannah Mackenzie speaking there to local democracy reporter Emma Draper. Well, in response, government says the Council of Ministers identified a number of key priorities in 2021 and rate reform was not included. It adds it's actively addressing issues with empty properties. Let us know your thoughts on that story, 166 177. The time now 7 minutes past 5. There's a zero-tolerance approach to racers returning positive drug or alcohol tests during the Manx Grand Prix and TT. That's from the clerk of the course, following the suspension of competitor Alex Sinclair from this year's event after he recorded a non-negative test for a recreational drug. As we heard from Siobhan at the top of the hour, organisers had said it was a positive test. They've now issued a correction on that. But Gary Thompson told Manx Radio the rules are crystal clear to all who compete.
We have tightened up on drugs testing and alcohol testing at both the TT and the MGP, and certainly over the last few years at both events drugs testing has taken place. It's a random drugs test, so the professional company comes across from UK, they take the programme off me, I've got no input or nobody has got no input at all as to who is selected. The tester goes through the programme, he selects a number of riders, a number of officials, and then goes through the testing process. We have had a rider this afternoon who was tested positive for recreational drugs, so he's been immediately disqualified from this event, and his name will be passed to the ACU as the governing body, of which he's a licence holder, and it's up to the ACU then if they take any further action. If it's a rider from another federation, so if it's an Irish rider, they'll be reported to the MCI, and any other rider will be reported to their own federation, and it's then up to that federation if they take any remedial action. But obviously I work at the ACU. The ACU's further penalties is they could impose a further 2-year minimum suspension, but that's one for the ACU to decide and not me.
So basically the message there is it's zero tolerance here, and you could be randomly selected, so it's being aware of that when you come into competitions like this. On every rider's briefing I make it absolutely crystal clear that there is zero tolerance for drugs and alcohol. If anybody is tested positive for either drugs or alcohol, they will be disqualified. It's zero tolerance, and that message is absolutely clear.
That's clerk of the course Gary Thompson speaking to Siobhan there. A reminder, organisers originally said it was a positive test, as we heard from Gary there. They've now issued a correction saying that was a non-negative test for a recreational drug for Alex Sinclair. So we await further information on that. Now back to the weather for this week. As we heard at the top of the hour, yellow warning in place from tonight until Thursday afternoon for gales, severe gales, coastal overtopping and harbour flooding. Well, I spoke to Senior Met Officer Kirsty Pendlebury a short time ago about what's causing this unseasonable weather and if it will put a dampener on the MGP.
As we go through the second half of this week, things certainly looking a lot more unsettled, unfortunately. A lot of that is down to the fact that we're going to see ex-hurricane Ernesto moving across the Atlantic over the next couple of days, and that's bringing some very unsettled weather with it. Obviously, it's been quite windy already, particularly yesterday evening, but as we head through into later Wednesday evening and overnight into Thursday at the moment, that's the first spell that we're going to see some really strong winds. The winds are going to pick up from the south, becoming gale force or severe gale force, and during the overnight period, maybe from around 1 or 2 in the morning on Thursday through till around 7 or 8 in the morning, we could see some gusts of around 55 miles an hour. So really quite windy. Obviously, a lot of people out there camping, and it's quite unseasonable for this time of year. So even any of you locals that have got garden furniture and things outside, it's worth being a bit careful with that.
So batten down the hatches. You were mentioning about bikers parking on the promenades as well. We could see some coastal overtopping. What times are worst off?
Yeah, for certain. So at the moment, the tide that we're most concerned about is just into the early hours on Thursday morning. That tide is at 20 to 2 in the morning. With the winds from the south-southwest around gale force, we are going to see some quite significant amounts of seawater and debris getting washed onto exposed coastal roads and promenades around the time of that high water. The areas most likely to be at risk really are Shore Road and Rushen, Castletown Promenade, the northern end of Douglas Promenade, so around the Summerland area. Worth being careful there. I know that there's some people that may park in that area. Worth not having any vehicles there, but to be honest, even Laxey Promenade and Ramsey Promenade and central parts of Douglas as well. I think really the message is if you're able to park further away from the coast, certainly Wednesday night into Thursday and again Thursday night into Friday, it's worthwhile doing that because we have got that coastal overtopping warning in force, and we're also looking at a risk as well of seeing some inner harbour flooding for both of the high tides as well on Wednesday night and Thursday night as well.
Just how unseasonable is it for this time of year, what we're experiencing now?
I mean, quite often at this time of year we can get ex-hurricanes moving through and transitioning into these deep areas of low pressure, but at the moment obviously the jet stream has been really sort of stuck over us over the last month or so, giving us sort of low pressure after low pressure, and it is a lot more unseasonable to get sort of this strength of wind, particularly when you look at the fact we had sort of force 7 to gale 8s at the beginning of the week, sort of Monday evening into Tuesday, and then to have potential gales again Thursday morning and again on Friday morning. Three lots of gales in a week is probably a bit more unseasonable and not really what we're used to in August, and quite frustrating that it falls in the middle of Manx Grand Prix as well.
Frustrating indeed. Pleased to say the weather looking set to improve at the weekend. Thanks to Kirsty Pendlebury from the Ronalds Way Met Office there. And remember that warning, avoid parking on promenades overnight Wednesday into Thursday and possibly the following night if you can.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Now, to hear this news today, KFC has been granted approval to operate for 24 hours a day. The fast food outlet on Peel Road in Douglas had applied to extend its permitted opening hours, which are currently 10:30am until midnight. Sean Cowper reports.
In the application, Gastronomy Foods UK Limited said the store is experiencing high demand, which is having a knock-on effect of causing large queues both in the restaurant and the delivery/drive-thru lane. It argued by extending the opening hours, this would hopefully alleviate some of this pressure and will help with traffic management on site and in the surrounding areas by spreading out customer demand. At a meeting of the planning committee, the plans were given the green light. The condition is, however, that only the drive-thru will be available for 24 hours, with the restaurant doors closing at the usual time of midnight. This follows concerns from the Isle of Man Constabulary around antisocial behaviour on the site. It was agreed the change would have little impact on the surrounding area, given its close proximity to the island's only 24-hour petrol station. McDonald's, just down the road from KFC, also operates 24 hours over the weekend period. Whilst the permission is there for 24 hours, 7 days a week, it's not yet known what timetable KFC will operate under. One committee member, Matthew Warren, questioned whether there were any public health policies that could be referred to on this matter, asking, should we be eating fried chicken at 3 in the morning? Ultimately, the plans to extend the drive-thru opening times were approved, with just one member of the planning committee, Mr Warren, voting against.
Sean Cowper with that report there. Looking at the business news on the Isle of Man today, Business Isle of Man has changed the date of one of its upcoming workshops in the south of the island. A feedback session for the draft local economy strategy was due to take place on Thursday, the 22nd of August, at the Falcon's Nest Hotel in Port Erin. Following communication from businesses in the area, though, that date has now changed to Thursday, the 12th of September. It will still take place between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. at the Falcon's Nest. The agency says it's an opportunity for the business community to give feedback on the proposed strategy and get involved in shaping the local economy, as well as connect with the team behind it. You can book your free ticket online via Eventbrite. Now for the latest stock market report from Ramsey Crookall. UK and European stocks moved lower as market uncertainty over the outlook for interest rate cuts lingers. The dollar hit a fresh 7-month low, trading at $1.301 per British pound sterling, with traders bracing for comments from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell due on Friday, which could provide clues about the speed of the US monetary easing cycle. Gold prices hit a record high at $2,511, up 0.3%, as a weaker dollar and buying by Western investors extended the precious metals rally amid bets the US Federal Reserve will cut interest rates in September. Oil prices dipped 0.51% to $77.36 a barrel of Brent, retreating for a third straight day as Israel accepting a proposal to tackle disagreements blocking a ceasefire deal in Gaza eased supply concerns, while China's economic weakness continued to weigh on demand outlook. The markets at the close, the FTSE 100 down 1.01% to 8,272, and the DAX down 0.31% to 18,364. And a short time ago, the Dow Jones down 0.20% to 40,816. The S&P 500 down 0.25% to 5,594. And the Nasdaq down 0.4% to 17,805.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m. is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, how about this for timing? The Manx Grand Prix, just a note in saying this evening's qualifying session will be going ahead as per the schedule. So that means all roads on the TT Mountain course will close at 6 o'clock as planned, reopening no later than 9 o'clock tonight. Elsewhere around the island, in Douglas until the 3rd of September, Annika Road is closed between Bearcam and Close Kennish for resurfacing. In Mackald until the 27th of August, Jacks Lane is closed for ditching works. And in Ramsey until today, temporary lights on Bowring Road 24 hours a day between Windsor Road and Coburg Road for ongoing gas main work. In Sandygate until the 30th of this month, temporary lights to the east of the village on the Sandygate Road 24 hours a day for work on the pavement. In Glen May until the 5th of September, a stretch of the Aracy Road is closed for resurfacing. In Foxdale until the 23rd of August, temporary lights on the main road through the village near the Mines Road turn 24 hours a day for property repairs. And on the Ballamoda, temporary lights on the Ballamoda Strait to the southern side of South Barrule Plantation 24 hours a day for water main work. Over at the airport, all flights in and out on time this afternoon, and on the sailings, the Manannan due into Liverpool at 6:10. This evening's Manxman departure from Douglas to Heysham has been rescheduled though, will now depart at 8:30 instead of 7:45. Passengers are asked to check in no later than 7:45. The return journey at 2:15 from Heysham is expected to depart on schedule.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
The time now approaching 5:20. A charity which supports older people in times of need on the Isle of Man has warned that no voluntary organisation is 100% safe. Age Concern says it's acutely aware of the pressures facing the third sector on the island as cost and demand increase. It follows the announcement that fellow charity Live at Home will be restructuring due to financial pressures. Maureen Calburn and Steve Dawson are from Age Concern.
Our bills have all gone up and up, as everybody will appreciate out there. All the utility bills have gone up. In fact, everything we buy now, any work we have done, it's all increased. So we have to find more and more and more. And I do think, this could be a personal view, but I do think people haven't got the same amount of money to give to charities, and that's completely understandable. We have some marvellous donations for our shops, and that's basically our biggest fundraising avenue is the shops.
I know last week we had a charity that announced it was closing, but a few hours later, fortunately, were given a handout that they needed. Is that something that concerns you? When you first heard the news, did that concern you? Does that show, where it's going, where it's heading for charities?
We were quite sad about it when we heard about it because we thought it's a good charity, it does a great job. But what it did show is that none of us are 100% safe, really. We've got to constantly be raising funds, looking at what we spend our money on.
With the rising costs, how difficult is it for charities to continue to provide the services? Do you constantly have to kind of reevaluate the services or how you can deliver it better or more cost-effective for residents?
Yeah, we're constantly doing that. How can we do things differently? Is there a better way of doing things? Is there a more cost-effective way of doing things? But we are always very careful, as I said earlier, that the older people don't suffer, really. We're still okay in Age Concern, but that's because we are all really good housekeepers.
And also, we're quite fortunate that we have fundraiser who actually raises money for us as well. Just on the back of a very successful weekend 2 weekends ago, we had the Gatsby Ball, where, a few £1,000 was raised, which goes towards the well-being wellness of older people, which is great. Thanks to people like that, it just gives us extra money to do more things what we can afford. You don't realise how thin we are at times with all the amounts of things we are doing. I can be out 3 days a week doing different things and what have you.
Maureen Calburn and Steve Dawson from Age Concern speaking to Chanel Suku there. Now, visitors to the Isle of Man for the Manx Grand Prix are being urged to ensure they have travel insurance in place. The advice comes from Manx Care's Commercial Development Manager, who says whilst emergency care is free, if a person is admitted for further treatment, they could be required to pay thousands. Andrew Reid told Manx Radio UK residents would be covered, but those from outside won't.
Look at the small print, because the cheapest travel insurance kind of possibly doesn't give you what you need to have. When you come to the Isle of Man, obviously there's the cost of your treatment whilst you're an inpatient, but if we have to repatriate you back to your home country, then that's a really, really expensive cost. The Isle of Man is one of a nation that's got our own air ambulance service, and we can repatriate people back to their countries. And even if we repatriate back to the United Kingdom, that's not always covered by the reciprocal health agreement. So that's why we also tell people that do come here from the United Kingdom, just make sure you have travel insurance that will cover you for repatriation, because not every situation will be free to get you back home. That can range from £5,000 to £35,000 depending on what what your medical needs are to get you back. So from hospital to hospital transfer with medical staff on board, it can be really, really, really expensive. And some of the cheaper travel insurances don't cover you for repatriation. They cover you for medical expenses up to, say, like £1 million, but the small print says no repatriation. So you've got to check.
And that'd be year round, I suppose. We're not just talking MGP and TT.
No.
That's year round.
All year round. I mean, we've got people off of cruise ships, and that's even worse because the cruise ship will actually deposit the person that's got a medical emergency into the hospital. When the cruise ship doesn't stop and wait for them to come out of hospital, they'll head off, and then that person is left here with no means of transport to either rejoin the cruise ship at its next destination or to get back to their home country, which could be from the States, it could be anywhere. Although I must say, cruise ships do say that they have to have insurance before you get on board, but people visiting family that live on the Isle of Man, but but are from other countries and they come and visit, those family members need to have travel insurance.
Manx Care's Commercial Development Manager Andrew Reid there. A reminder, tonight's Manx Grand Prix session is going ahead as scheduled. Roads are due to close at 6 o'clock, reopening no later than 9 o'clock tonight. The time now, 5:25. Let's have the latest sporting news today with Darren Timpson. Fast am I, Darren?
Fast am I. After yesterday's cancelled qualifying session, the Manx Grand Prix is set to be back on this evening. Roads are due to close at 6 p.m, with the Senior and Classic Superbike session beginning at 6:30 p.m. The Junior, Lightweight and Classic Senior is then set to take place at 7:20 p.m, with the Classic Junior then due to round off the session and will begin at 7:45. Roads will be open no later than 9 p.m. Manx Grand Prix competitor Alex Sinclair has been excluded from this year's event after returning a non-negative test for a recreational drug. In a statement, ACU Events Limited says this comes following a random drugs test carried out as part of the event's drug and alcohol screening protocols. Sinclair's exclusion is with immediate effect. AT Events Limited adds the matter will be passed on to Autocycle Union, the national governing body for motorcycle sport in Great Britain. Sanctions for competitors caught doping can be a ban from ACU competitions for a minimum of 2 years. The Manx Grand Prix racers and ACU share a strict zero-tolerance policy for the presence of drugs and alcohol officials for competitors during an event period. On to football, and the squad for the Isle of Man women's national football team has been named to take on fellow island nations in a new tournament later this week. The Manx team is taking part in the inaugural Cherry Godfrey Cup being held in Jersey this Friday and Saturday. Led by captain Becky Corkish, the Isle of Man team will feature a mix of youth and experience. It's also now been confirmed they'll face the Isle of Wight in their opening game on Friday at 5 p.m, whilst Jersey will take on Guernsey in the following game at 8 p.m. on the same day. The winners of those two fixtures will face off in the final at 3 p.m. on Saturday. You can see the Isle of Man squad taking part in the 2024 Cherry Godfrey Cup at manxradio.com.
Darren Simpson, Guru Mayed. Thank you very much. That's all from Update this evening. Thank you for listening. Do remember, if you have a story you believe is worth reporting, you can contact us in the Manx Radio newsroom anytime by email. It's newsroom@manxradio.com. Coming up next, news editor Tessa Hawley takes an in-depth look at deaths in custody at the Isle of Man prison. Afterwards, at 6 o'clock, Kim Quine is back with Greatest Hits. I've been Lewis Foster. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow with Update.